13, especially the second beast, the lamb-like beast that down near the close of Earth's history unites with the first beast, the papal power, and also creates a religious entity within its midst, within this lamb-like beast. There is an image that is set up that's absolutely identical to the papal power of the Dark Ages. And of course we know that image is when apostate Protestants become so powerful in America that they use their religious understandings to so influence the government of the United States that they will enact a national Sunday law. And so, as we study this morning about this man, Donald Trump, and who has he been working with, and let's understand it in the light of prophecy to understand where we are in Earth's history. So, we're going to look this morning, Trump, Rome's perfect man. Now, back in October, I believe, there was a gathering, a gala, a party. It was called the Al Smith Charity Dinner in New York City. And it's put on every year to fund Roman Catholic charities, both in the greater New York area, within the 5 boroughs, and I'm sure beyond. Archbishop Timothy Dolan was there. He's at St. Patrick's Cathedral. And of course, the candidates for the White House were there, Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton. Now, I'm not telling you anything you don't remember, but it was a very chaotic election process. You remember back in June, July, August, September, October, and into November. Very chaotic, very vitriolic as the Democratic candidate went after his throat and he after hers. And so the great impression that was made in the mind of American citizens is that you have two people that are diametrically opposed, that are completely at odds with each other and their beliefs. Well, they had something, friends, very much in common. They were both being told what to do by this man right here. Both of them. I want to notice, and this passage of Scripture it's really amazing. Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 and 2. The Bible very simply says, there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, or the plagues, because Revelation 16 is talking about the plagues, and talked with me, saying to me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Well, all the Protestant reformers, and Ellen White, and all of the famous Protestants of the 19th century, all understood the whore to be the papal power. Now the Bible says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been drunk with the wine of her fornication. Now the Bible connects and says that there are two entities that are in bed with each other, and apparently from Revelation 17 verse 2, they appear to be equals. Now the Bible identifies that other entity in this whoredom as the kings of the earth. Now, friend, I would ask you a question. Who are the kings of the earth? Well, the kings of the earth are the presidents, the dictators, the prime ministers. They're the ones that cahoot the great whore of the Mediterranean. Now, Revelation 17:18 paints a little bit different picture. This passage gives the impression that the kings of the earth and the great whore are equals, that they're working together. But Revelation 17:18, it's like it sheds a little bit more light and says, well, let's clarify that for you. And it says, the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So the Bible makes it very clear these people are not equals. They're not equals. The Bible says the whore reigns over the kings of the earth. Whore tells the kings of the earth what to do. Now, is Donald Trump a king of the earth? Is he a leader? Well, I mean, that's so ridiculous to even ask that question. Of course he is. And Hillary Clinton is too. Now, in light of what we've been hearing about in the press, that could be ominous. It could be huge in the light of end-time Bible prophecy. But let's extend this a little bit. Donald Trump is a king of the earth, controlled by the papacy. How about Vladimir Putin of Russia? Is Vladimir Putin a king of the earth? Of course he is. So who's pulling Vladimir Putin's strings? Now think about that, friends. You say, oh, but he's the bad guy. And the American, he's the good guy. No, friends. That's what the press has told you. Donald Trump is just as much a good guy as Vladimir Putin is a good guy. Or if you want to say Donald Trump is a bad guy, Vladimir Putin is just as much a bad guy as Donald Trump. Do you hear what I'm saying? We sit back as an American living in America and we say, well, we're the good guys. No, we're not the good guys, friends. This entity, this Bishop Dolan of St. Patrick's Cathedral, America, the world policeman. If somebody cuts their finger, who immediately comes to their aid? Well, it's the United States. We're the world's policemen. If something happens, if there's a problem in some part of the world, who takes it upon themselves to become the answer to the world's problems? America does. Now, friends, that was never the way America was set up. Because in 1823, 3 years before Ellen White was born, James Monroe gave the famous Monroe Doctrine that said, America deals with America's problems in the Western Hemisphere. Europe and the rest of the world, they have their own set of problems. You handle your own. We're not going to get involved. But somehow, friends, over time, the American mentality changed with World War I and World War II and Vietnam and Korea because of the control of the American politicians. So that now, America's the Donald Trump is not only a king of the earth. Revelation 18, 11 to 15 talks about all the merchandise that's sold throughout the world: gold, silver, stones, pearls, linen, purple, silk, scarlet, wood, ivory, brass, iron, marble, cinnamon, odors, ointments, frankincense, wine, oil, flour, wheat, bees, sheep, horses, chariots, slaves, and men. And it says that the people who buy and sell all these commodities are also controlled by the whore, by Babylon the Great, by the papal power, friends. Well, Donald Trump fits into both of those, doesn't he? He's not only a king of the earth, he's also a merchant of the earth. So Donald Trump was put into the White House to do the bidding of the great whore of Revelation 17 and 18. You say, but wait a minute. I like some of the things he did and does. I like some of his ideas. You know, friend, I do too. But that still does not erase the fact that the Bible is very clear who's pulling his strings. While the elections debate seemed to suggest that Trump and Clinton were mortal enemies, the truth of the matter is that they're good friends. Good friends, folks. Trump gave donations to the Clintons. Bill and Hillary attended his wedding to his current wife back in 2005. According to Trump, he and Bill have golfed together while discussing private matters. Why not? Bill Clinton was Jesuit trained by the order at its Georgetown University. Do you know where Donald Trump was trained? Do you know where he received his education? Donald Trump went to Fordham University. Does anybody know who runs Fordham University? Do you know? Fordham University is the preeminent Jesuit university in New York. That's where Donald Trump went for the first 2 years of college, and for then some reason transferred. Back in the early 1920s, the Catholic Church created an entity in the United States called the Council on Foreign Relations. Because at the end of World War I, the papacy wanted America to join the League of Nations that Woodrow Wilson was pushing. Of course, America said no. And so the Jesuits created the Council on Foreign Relations in America. And one of the things, this is what they decided. The CFR would control the Jesuits' finance in America, the government, industry, religion, education, and the press. No one would be elected to the presidency of the United States without the CFR's consent, because the office would be a tool for the Archbishop of New York, subject to the Vicar of Christ in Rome. So the CFR was created in America, and they would seek to control the money, the government, industry, religion, education, and the press. Now, do you remember what Tony Palmer and Kenneth Copeland and Pope Francis said a couple of years ago about Protestantism in the world? You remember what they said? The protest is over. Protestantism is dead. It's dead. How could they say that, friends? Well, they know that the Jesuits or the CFR control all the major religious groups of the world. They know that. Why? Because they have strategically placed people at the heads of all those churches. That's why is the American educational system today going to the pots? Why, folk? Why is homosexuality being allowed to be taught in school? And teaching children at 5 years old, or right there in the elementary grades, they're learning about contraception. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Where did that come from, folk? The Jesuits controlled the educational system of America. And what about what we read and hear in the press? Who told us that Vladimir Putin in Russia is so evil and America is so great? Who told us that? The press did. Channel 9, Eyewitness News, or CNN, or USA Today, or the Orlando Sentinel. Who controls that press, folk? Who told them to tell us that Putin was so bad? Jesuits control the press today. And how about the Jesuits in Moscow? What did they tell the Russian people about Donald Trump in America? What did they tell the people in Russia? The exact opposite. You say, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Oh, but friends, it's a beautiful mastermind. Now listen to this little scenario, okay? Listen to this scenario. The Jesuits in the West tell the West how evil Assad is in Syria and how terrible the Russians are. Have you heard that this week, friends? You bet you have. I have. Now, who controls Assad in Syria? He's the king of the earth. Who's calling his shots? Come on now, who is it? The harlot is, that's right. And Assad and all the Middle East and Russia, the Jesuits there are telling those people how evil and terrible America is. And so you build and build and build. Until finally, folk, it's like the plates underground when they're rubbing against each other. Till finally, what happens? Boom! There's an earthquake. And folk, if God allows, those plates will continue to rub against each other. And what will be the result of that, folk? There will be conflict in what part of the world? It would probably start in the Middle East, wouldn't it? Now, folk, what battle does the Bible talk about taking place at the end of time? What's it called? Armageddon. But Armageddon is not a physical battle, is it? It's a spiritual battle between the forces of righteousness and the forces of darkness. But the devil always has a counterfeit, doesn't he? Doesn't he? And so what is all the world waiting for before the Messiah can come? They're waiting for Armageddon to be fought. A physical battle, Armageddon. Now, folk, let's take the scenario one step further. Again, only as God allows. Because He's in control. What would happen if in this conflict, what would happen if some missile were to end up in San Francisco Bay? Or what happens if a missile somehow landed on Saks Fifth Avenue? What would happen? Millions of people would die, wouldn't they? And Americans would be screaming, God, please help us. Please help us, God. You remember after September 11th? I saw on marquees on Main Street in downtown Eustis, the marquees after 9/11, it said, God bless America. You remember that? It should have said, God less America. What's that, Rita? Where a bee fell off, and that would be much more appropriate. But folk, now think about, if a Russian missile hit some big city in America, there would be a cry across this country in a heartbeat. And the cry would be, we need to get back to God. And how would America get back to God, friends? How do you spell it? It starts with an S and ends with a Y. It's called Sunday. Now, can you think about, friends, the pressure? Think about the pressure. Americans are becoming religious, and they're getting back to God. And here's a group of people that are not going along with it. Think about pressure, friends. There'd be pressure, wouldn't there? Big pressure. Can you see, friends, how this apparent gassing of children, apparently in Syria, how, folk, that could be used to create Revelation 13 right before our eyes? Can you see that? Was there anything that I just said that's ridiculous and crazy and nuts? I think it sounds pretty logical. Pretty logical. Victor.
After the earthquake of Managua, my country, Nicaragua, after the earthquake in 1972, there was not one church that was not packed to the walls. Every single church. After any crisis, people run to God like crazy.
You bet, Victor. Victor's comment for the camera is that there was an earthquake in Nicaragua back in the early 70s, 1970, 72, and in the aftermath of the chaos that ensued from that earthquake, people in Nicaragua were rushing into church. It's amazing how crisis and chaos, that of course was natural disaster. But whether it's natural or whether it's man-made, it's amazing how quickly people can become religious. And even in a country where I think they're saying today about 20% of Americans go to church, folk, we could have a Christian nation very, very quickly as God allows. Paul?
But the apostasy
That's another scenario, Paul. Where exactly?
The back part, national apostasy leads to national.
Get that, Paul. I know the statement. I know the statement that national apostasy results in national ruin. I know that statement. If you could find that, let's read around it. Let's read around it and see what the context is. Now, the fact, folk, that the CFR controls all these entities in America. I want you to notice over the last 50, 60 years, some of the people that have been controlled by the CFR. Notice, Herbert Hoover, Richard Nixon, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Hubert Humphrey, Nelson Rockefeller, John Foster Dulles, John F. Kennedy, Walter Mondale, Dick Cheney, George H.W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, William Jefferson Clinton, Henry Kissinger, Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice, Donald Rumsfeld, Caspar Weinberger. Those were just some of the names that I underlined for you to show you the influence and the power that the Jesuits have utilized through the CFR to control the political climate of the United States. The man who created the CFR, Edward Mandell House, was controlled by the Rothschilds, who were controlled by the Jesuits. Donald Trump has declared that if elected president, his foreign policy advisor would be Richard Hawes, president of the Council on Foreign Relations for the last 14 years. You know, a lot of people in their despising Barack Obama and all that he stood for, people have wanted to praise the current president as a breath of fresh air. But folk, if you analyze carefully the people that are influencing the President of the United States, it's the very same people that are controlled by the same entity as was Barack Obama. One man who Donald Trump has looked to for a lot of advice, this man right here, Henry Kissinger. Donald Trump is cut from the exact same cloth as Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Same cloth, folk. If Trump were elected president, certain appointed CFR members would be directing his actions and making his policies. The Jesuits will be and are running the White House. Not to be outdone, Donald Trump sent his son Eric Trump to Georgetown University, graduating from its Hughes School of Business in 2006. Again, folk, Donald Trump has intimate ties to the Jesuit order. Trump's Supreme Court appointee, Judge Neil Gorsuch, who was recently passed, I believe it was this week. Neil Gorsuch went to Georgetown Preparatory School. It's an American Jesuit college preparatory school for boys grades 9 through 12. It's among the most selective prep schools, the only Jesuit boarding school in the country. It's located in the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Washington on 90 acres in the suburban community of North Bethesda in Montgomery County, Maryland, outside of the District of Columbia. You know, folk, it's very easy. I mean, how many of us, watching the policies of the previous president and saying, oh, that was evil, and he clearly was in Rome's corner. But friend, Donald Trump is in the same corner. In the same corner, friends. There's no difference. They're just coming at things from a different angle. That's all it is. Opposite corner, same what, Rita?
Same ring.
Same ring. Absolutely. Opposite corner, same ring, same goal. Same goal. Now, who are these people that Donald Trump was educated by? He had his son educated at Georgetown. Neil Gorsuch was trained at Georgetown. Who are these people that control the CFR? Great Controversy 234. It says, throughout Christendom, Protestantism was menaced by formidable foes. The first triumphs of the Reformation passed. Rome summoned new forces, hoping to accomplish its destruction. At this time, the order of the Jesuits was created, the most cruel, unscrupulous, and powerful of all the champions of popery. Cut off from earthly ties and human interests, dead to the claims of natural affection. Reason and conscience wholly silenced. They knew no rule, no tie but that of their order. No duty but to extend its power. Neil Gorsuch, Donald Trump, Eric Trump, Richard Hawes, Henry Kissinger, and all these other men are controlled by these people. Then what are these people aiming for in this country? To make America great again? Or to make Rome great again? I think it's a fair question. I think it's a very fair question. The Jesuits have one goal: to extend the power of Rome. That is their goal. And those entities, those men that are under their authority, are seeking to extend Rome's power as well. Going on, it says, Jesuitism inspired its followers with a fanaticism that enabled them to endure like dangers, to oppose the power of truth, all the weapons of deception. There was no crime too great for them to commit, no deception too base for them to practice, no disguise too difficult for them to assume. Vowed to perpetual poverty and humility, it was their studied aim to secure wealth and power, to be devoted to the overthrow of Protestantism and the reestablishment of the papal supremacy. Folk, you know, with a Sunday law, Protestantism would be absolutely overthrown. And the reestablishment of Rome's power and supremacy would be at its height once again. The Bible says that Rome controls Trump as it does Clinton and most, if not all, politicians. Not all, there's a few left. The CFR, controlled by the Jesuits, controls both political parties in America. Trump has been educated and has had one of his sons educated by the Jesuits. He's promised to do their bidding. He is Rome's perfect man. Let me read a couple of statements to you. With Donald Trump's campaign losing ground among independent voters in due to a series of well-publicized mistakes, the GOP presidential nominee has tripled down with the one base of political support that has steadfastly remained with him: white evangelical voters, by promising to dismantle the laws that separate the church and the state in America. Now, friend, that sounds to me that if God allowed Donald Trump to do such, we could see Revelation chapter 13 right before our eyes. Go ahead, Victor, and then Paul.
From the Roman Tower's point of view, what can we say is their ultimate goal?
Rome's ultimate goal, Victor?
From their point of view, from the way they see it.
Well, I think it's this right here, Victor. The reestablishment of the papal supremacy via a national and universal Sunday law that would bring everybody to their knees in obeisance to papal authority. That would be their ultimate goal. And everything, Victor, including the events of this last week, if the Lord permits, could be setting a stage whereby we could see that very thing. That very thing. Paul?
Something happened this week that got me thinking. Steve Bannon is going to be kicked out by Trump's top advisors.
Right.
Do you know the reason why? Because all I kept thinking this week was a lamb that looks like a lamb speaks like a dragon, because he was against bombing Syria. But his son-in-law and Bannon were clashing heads. Now Steve Bannon pretty much going to be out, and he's very conservative. So I found that to be quite interesting.
Very interesting, Paul. For the camera, Paul said Stephen Bannon, one of Trump's top advisors, was against bombing Syria. But now it appears as though Bannon is out the door because of his clashing with Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
There's a Sabbath keeper, which is interesting.
He's a Sabbath keeper, yeah. Sabbath keeper, he's Jewish. Trump told pastors that if evangelical voters would make the difference in key battleground states like Florida, Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and if white evangelical Christians put him in the White House, he promised to return the favor. You have a chance to do something that will be earth-shaking, Trump said. I literally mean it, earth-shaking. You've got to get your you've got to get your people out to vote. Now, friend, it's very interesting. Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, these three states, these were the turning point in the election. Donald Trump won the White House by about 60 electoral votes. You count that's 38, that's 67 right there. And it was the evangelical vote in Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania that turned these states in his favor. And what did Donald Trump tell the evangelicals? You put me in the White House, I will return the favor. Donald Trump trained well, went to Fordham University, a Jesuit school in the Bronx, for 2 years. That's from the Washington Post, 7/17/2015. Donald Trump told Roman Catholics in Denver, the leaders, he said, if I'm elected president, I look forward to working with these two respected leaders of the Catholic Church in America. He was talking about two priests in Denver. They're brother bishops in Congress on issues of critical importance to the Catholic Church and Catholics. Catholics in the United States of America are a rich part of our nation's history. That's not true. The United States was and is strengthened through Catholic men, women, priests, and religious sisters ministering to people, marching in civil rights movement, educating millions of children in Catholic schools. This is just amazing. I have a message for Catholics. I will be there for you. I will stand with you. I will fight for you. Now, folk, in the light of Bible prophecy, Donald Trump has declared, I will help the image of the beast, and I will help the beast. So, in the light of Bible prophecy, Donald Trump is in Rome's hand and is doing their bidding. In 2016, it was Archbishop Dolan with the Democrat and the Republican. In 2012, it was the Archbishop, the whore, with the lamb-like beast, the Democrat, and the Republican, controlling both sides. Barack Obama, as a CFR member and Jesuit operative, took the nation way to the left on the spectrum. It was way out here, wasn't it? LGBT. It was bringing Islamic terrorists into the country. It was Obamacare, illegal immigration. People were getting sick of it, weren't we? He took the nation way out here, and the Jesuits used him. Push it as far as you can. And then Donald Trump came in, and Barack Obama let go of the pendulum. And now what happens when a pendulum is pulled way out here and you let it go? Does it come back and stop in the middle? Doesn't do that, does it, friend? It keeps right on going to the other side. Donald Trump, friends, in the light of Bible prophecy, as God allows, Donald Trump is Rome's perfect